Welcome everyone to Publishing Critical Work in Scandinavian Journal of Management, our first CMS InTouch of 2022. We'll be starting in a few minutes, but in the meantime, please take a moment to say hello in the chat. You just have to put your name and where you're joining us from, and just remember to select all panelists and attendees in the drop-down menu next to the two so everyone can see your notes. Hello everyone, nice to see everyone joining. We're going to be starting in about a minute. So in the meantime, if you just want to say hello in the chat, just by selecting all panelists and attendees and writing your name and telling us where you're joining us from, and we'll start in 30 seconds.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. Welcome to our first CMS InTouch event of 2022 and to our 10th event in our Publishing Critical Work series. So in this series, we bring you together through monthly events in conversation with editors of journals that are not only accepting critical work, but actually actively fostering and encouraging it. And we also bring editors in conversation with critical management studies communities, in other words, you. We want to really foster, support and foster our critical management studies community in these challenging times, and promote connections and conversations across various boundaries, geographic, political, financial, etc. And we also want to encourage conversations about the nature of knowledge production and publishing in our field as well. So we've had some amazing journals, and today is no exception, because we're absolutely delighted to have the Scandinavian Journal of Management with us today, in particular Karen and Barbara. This is a journal that is very close to my heart personally. 10 years ago, they have published a paper of mine, wackily called Non-Survival Guide to the Brave New Higher Education for the Intellectually Pregnant. And this was a paper that very few journals would have published, I think, but Scandinavian Journal of Management took a risk on it, I think, and it was really important to me because I was at the time, I was really struggling at the time, and it was a very dark time. But having published that paper really gave me confidence to kind of stand against some of the things that I felt were wrong in universities at the time. And it turned into a research program that has flourished, is still ongoing 10 years later. And I owe a lot of my other publications and a lot of my identity as a scholar to the Scandinavian Journal of Management. So I'm absolutely delighted that they're part of our program. And without, actually, there is a further ado, because I forgot, I will pass you on to Barbara and Karen in just a moment, but I just wanted to mention a couple of household points first. So first of all, we have an hour today, so plenty of time to think and engage and ask questions and have a discussion. And secondly, you can start asking questions at any time. And we ask that we put your questions in the Q&A function. So if you look at the bottom of your screens, there should be like two little speech bubbles and Q&A underneath. So put your questions there, and we'll make sure that when it comes to the discussion part that Karen and Barbara see them. So don't put them in the chat, put them in the QA just makes it easier for us to spot them and make sure that they get answered. So now, without further ado, I'll pass you on to our wonderful editors. And I think it's Karen. I think you're talking first. So over to you, Karen.
Thank you, Alex, for this wonderful and personal introduction. So happy that we have been able to, well, have such an important role for you. And yeah, greetings from a very windy and cold Holland at the moment. I'm very much looking forward to engaging in a conversation with you today. Looking forward to all the questions you may have. Barbara and I, we will now first introduce ourselves and our team. And well, we have prepared, of course, a number of slides for you, a bit of information about the journal. This is our current editorial team. I am not alone as editor-in-chief. I share this role with John Ulhøj from Denmark. And we are very happy to have a really great team of associate editors, seven people at the moment. And I'm also happy that Barbara is joining us today as one of the ambassadors. We all see ourselves as ambassadors for this journal. Yeah, about myself, a little bit of background information. I started, as John Ulhøj did as well, I started as associate editor with the Scandinavian Journal of Management. I did so back in 2019, John a little earlier. And then we were approached by the publisher, by Elsevier, to consider whether we would consider taking over the role from our predecessor, Hans Hasselblad. And yeah, we very fondly did as of 1st of January last year. So we're quite new. Also, the team of associate editors is quite new, apart from Jana, who's been serving in that role for a bit longer. And I happily did say yes, because yeah, in terms of what the Scandinavian Journal of Management means to me, I have forever as a critical scholar turned to this journal for fresh topics, fresh approaches, basically for inspiration. So yeah, and I'm very happy that I can now contribute in this current role. Perhaps also a few words about me as a critical scholar. I'm particularly interested in questioning taken for granted dominant assumptions related to the entrepreneurship phenomenon, and in refocusing the attention from the more neoliberal ideas and ideals associated with it towards entrepreneurial everyday life and the complexities entrepreneurs are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. So that in short. Over to you, Barbara, for a little introduction.
Yeah, thank you. So also good morning, good afternoon, good evening from my side. It's really a pleasure being here. And thank you, Karen, for inviting me to join you. And also thank you to the CMS InTouch team for having us. Yeah, well, about myself, I'm Associate Professor at the Johannes Kepler University Linz, which is in Austria. Yeah, and I'm working on topics such as mainly leadership, but also new work, paradoxical phenomena, identity, on which I try to take a processor, reflexive, and especially also critical view by, for example, questioning our leadership development practices and how they still kind of support the heroic image of leaders and so on. Yeah. And since last year, I'm one of the associate editors of the Scandinavian Journal of Management. And I think similar to what Karen said, it's also to me, or also what Alex said at the beginning, so also to me, the journal is, yeah, has been on my reading list since the start of my PhD studies. It always provided something interesting, something new, thought triggering, and added to current discourse in a more open and critical way, I think, and that's yeah what I really appreciated, and I think that's why I also always felt attached to the journal. And Yeah, I have to say, despite all the work that such a role as an associate editor takes, I really appreciate that to some extent I can also contribute to critical work being published. And I also really enjoy being part of this great team that Karen already mentioned and told you a little bit about.
Yes, also a few words about those of the team who are not present. Of course, management is a broad field with many subfields or expertises, so to speak. So we have Jana from Turku, who's covering marketing management, one could say. Then we have John Christiansen from CBS. He is on organizational decision making mainly. Tobias from Sweden on finance and accounting, risk management. Sarah Dodd, Strathclyde, also Glasgow cat. She's on entrepreneurship. She replaced me actually. She's on entrepreneurship and SMEs. Linda with HRM. And the newest addition to the team, Tommy Jensen, and he is covering OT and ethics. The wonderful thing with the team is that everybody is quite flexible, so it's not like they're fixed categories. We can each cover quite a wide variety of topics. Well, on to a little bit about the journal. I'd say some technicalities. We're a relatively old journal, established in 1985, so it's on to volume number 38 this year already. We like to publish original, innovative, high quality papers, of course, and then within the wider fields of management and organization studies, we receive around 300 submissions per year. We are then a relatively small journal with only 4 issues per year and an average of, well, I'd say 6 manuscripts per issue. So yeah, John and I took over last year, the first time with 2 editors in chief, and now the 7 associate editors who are based across all of Europe. We have a very highly appreciated editorial assistant with Aaron Factor. And of course, as critical scholars, you're not all that interested in our performance indicators, but they do need to be there somehow. Most importantly, this journal has been very open and welcoming to critical research since its inception. And I would say that is at the very least testified by the former editors-in-chief, which you can see here on this slide. And also the former editors showcase the Scandinavian roots of the journal, as you can see. Basically, it's me who is the first editor-in-chief outside of Scandinavia, but I have some very warm and appreciated Scandinavian ties going on, one could say. Moving on to the next slide. Here you can see about those 300 manuscripts a year. Some years a little less, some years a little more, of course, but it's also, I think, good that we stipulate that the rejection rate is quite high. Not to discourage you at all, because of course we are here because we welcome your critical research, and we would definitely welcome more of it, because that would be quite straight into the heart of our interests. The reason why the desk reject is so high is due to the fact that a lot of manuscripts that we receive are just totally out of scope, not fitting the journal. So in terms of what we are looking for as a checklist, perhaps for all those desk rejects. But yeah, as a journal welcoming critical research, of course, we seek research that dares to deviate from mainstream approaches. And we like to see new ideas, emergent trends being taken up and further explored. Of course, we like work that dares to challenge existing dogmas and those taken for granted assumptions, such that they deliver new insights that can enhance existing management theory and practice. That aspect of practice, I should stipulate, is an important one for us. We really do encourage our authors to always give recommendations, little guides for actual practitioners. And yeah, of course, clear and well written. We do seek to publish manuscripts that can bring those important points across. Having said that, we are a developmental journal in that our approach, our take on this is that we like to also help you bring out those points in an effective way. Yeah, I think the next point is something Barbara is keen on explaining.
Yeah, keen on explaining, yeah, because it especially relates to what you just said. So the developmental approach that we take on the papers, if they are yeah, or if they fit to the journal, if they kind of can contribute to the community, but if they are also open to kind of engage in dialogue. I think that's something that we really want to also to emphasize and to enforce as well, yeah? So that we see, yeah, Alex said it at the beginning, so critical management studies also means questioning the nature of our knowledge production, and also we see publishing actually as a kind of communal activity and not as an individual activity. So this dialogue is something that in the journal we also want to enhance. And for this, I think we have some really good different types also of articles that are, in addition to the classical research articles, aim at especially enhancing dialogue and to make the dialogue open and not just behind between reviewers and authors and so on, but really also to make this dialogue open. So in addition to the original research articles, of course, that we publish and review articles, we also have perspective discussion style articles, yeah, that try to offer an overview and focus on a particular new topic in organization and management studies, or aim at challenging current views. So I would say, in addition to challenging, it's also the potential significant impact that is important to an interesting and intriguing perspective paper. Then, in addition to this, we also have research commentaries. Commentaries may select one or also several papers previously published in our journal, so in the Scandinavian Journal of Management, with the aim then of discussing and also challenging previous ideas and contributions in order to trigger further dialogue and yeah, to let something new emerge from this. Then also, of course, a book review section that we have, where we review ordinary reviews of recent books, but also classics in management and textbooks, but also in the tradition of critical management theory. So also here, more than welcome book reviews in this field. And of course, special issues, also something where, yeah, we would like to what we would like to emphasize also from a critical perspective, special issues, we would be more than happy to publish more of this. Yeah, so then Karen and I thought about, okay, what are some examples maybe of critical work in the Scandinavian Journal of Management, and just as an overview to give you some examples where you can see how and what kind of critical work is published in the Scandinavian Journal of Management. Here we have an example of a perspective paper, so that kind of challenges the management ideas industry, emphasizes the need for a more wholesome alternative, which these authors refer to as slow management, and they argue that management is above all also craft-like practice that needs time and thoughtfulness. And yeah, I think while they provide interesting thoughts and implications for management practice, we could also use some of these implications maybe for research practice as well. And yeah, emphasize this and what it would mean for our research practice. This here is an example of a classical research article that offers an alternative to the neo-institutionalist perspectives of the embedded agency paradox, and thereby adds to our understanding of institutional entrepreneurship. It's another topic. Or here, for example, another research article on gender equality change. So where the authors, they explore how managers in a participatory gender equality intervention, how they negotiate problem ownership. And with this, the authors provide some insights on how resistance can be productive to gender equality change. Or this, for example, is an article where the authors claim that the discourse of creativity in organization studies, that this is basically characterized by a very hegemonic positivity. And in this article, they discuss how we can broaden the discourse and embrace a more like they call grayer understanding of creativity in org studies, and by adding a critical discourse.
Yeah. Hegemonic positivity being something I also often recognize with regards to entrepreneurship. But about this particular critical article, I think this one testifies very well to how we are also open to experimenting with different writing styles. This is a very interesting and also personal endeavor. Stephen Allen reflecting on his own academic writing and reading, a very interesting and also inspirational read if you're interested. Yeah, moving actually on to in the direction of answering your questions. I think this is kind of a wrap up of our series of slides. Do's and don'ts. As I said, the main reason for desk rejecting is a lack of fit with the journal. So yeah, do not submit your paper without carefully considering its contribution and its fit. And we very much appreciate if you can mention your view on that in your cover letter. Yeah, the really very narrow as well as the really very broad and abstract discussions of specific themes are not given priority in terms of consideration. Yeah, the next point I think is very important, and it's also stipulating that element that Barbara has already emphasized. We do very much encourage dialogue, which means that we seek articles that are actually aware of conversations and work, conversations going on in the journal and work being published there. So it is actually something we really look for. Have you read up on what we are publishing in the Scandinavian Journal of Management with your submission? Yeah, the next point may seem futile, but we do actually have a lot of submissions with quite a high plagiarism score, which yeah, we then need to, of course, look into. And it is very often the case that you start somewhere and you do forget the paraphrasing. It's hardly ever intentional. But yeah, it just really helps if you run your own plagiarism check before submitting to the journal. Yeah, I don't think I need to explain comply with guidelines. You want to add something here, Barbara? No, she's moving on. This is also, I think, something that you may be interested in, the average editorial speed. So we are quite quick in our desk reject decisions. We are actually, as you can also see, trying to lower the time to the submission to the first for the submission to the first decision. This is yeah something we're right in the middle of trying to achieve, but I think very encouraging, hopefully for all of you, is that you can actually, so from submission to actual acceptance is not a very lengthy process with our journal. So I hope that that will stimulate you from submitting your interesting work with us. Of course, we now turn to your questions. We will be receiving them in the chat and try to answer it to the best of our knowledge. But if you have any questions afterwards, of course, you can either directly contact me or Barbara, and these are our email contact details. Yes, on to the questions. Okay, there is one here. I really appreciate the opportunity to understand what the Scandinavian Journal of Management publishes. I was wondering why Scandinavian Journal is not listed on Scopus. Oh, I must say I have absolutely no idea. Do you know this, Barbara?
To be honest, no, I'm sorry as well. So yeah, that's probably something that has to be on our list as well. I just when I talked with Karen about the journal and also what we appreciate about it and so on, I always said, well, I'm so happy because I got the question once, do you have it as an associate editor, do you have to look for impact factors or who is publishing the work and whatever, and I said no, actually not. And then I realized that this is not actually normal, or what I took for granted is maybe also very special to the journal. And yeah, so the key performance indicators, we are not looking after them very, at least not me as an associate editor, I don't have to do that. But on the other hand, yeah, that's maybe something we have to look at. Scopus, I'm sorry, I can't answer the question.
Yeah, I must admit that with Barbara, I'm not so much on the performance side of things, but I will definitely check this with our publisher. So if you get in touch with me, I hope I can provide an adequate answer later on. Shall I move the next one on to you, Barbara?
Yes, so, but I have to look which one was the next. Scopus, so the next. A question that often comes up is, what do you expect from your reviewers? Do we give them guidelines, for example? Maybe if I can start, well, actually, no, I do not really give them guidelines. Yeah, what do we expect from them? Also here, we expect from them a more developmental approach. So once I, for example, then send manuscript to reviewers, I really also try to emphasize that we want them, of course, to be critical with the work. We want the work to improve, and this is also what we really can see through the processes. So that's always great, especially for me. That was really great to see how manuscripts improve through the process. Yeah, by reviewers being very critical on the one hand, but also having thorough comments that help improving the paper. That's what I try to emphasize when I approach them, and then that's basically their work, and usually I'm very happy with their work. It's rather the question of finding reviewers. At the moment, everyone seems to be busy, everyone has to publish. However, on the other hand, we also need reviewers in order to publish and to improve work. So that's maybe more of a challenge. But once they agreed on reviewing, they do not get specific guidelines, but really more yeah, open feedback, which they usually provide in a very thorough manner.
Yeah, if I may add to that, in my experience, it is often the interaction between the associate editor and the reviewer. So sometimes reviewers do ask, is there anything in particular you'd like me to focus on? And of course, well, this, let me put it like this. This journal really values that sense of community and that sense of dialogue. And that sense of community, that it's not only our great editorial team, we also see, we also value a sense of community with our reviewers as well as our authors. So I can see that it's often a very direct interaction between the associate editor and the reviewers. I very much agree that it's important, especially for young scholars. And I really feel it is important that reviewers feel that they can reach out to our team. Having said that, and underscoring what Barbara is already mentioning, I think many journals are experiencing some issues with finding suitable reviewers. And I'd really like to encourage you to sign up with this journal to become a reviewer. It would be very much appreciated.
Mm. Maybe also just to add to this, what we try to do also when finding reviewers is, yeah, of course, finding kind of diversity, either if it's, I don't know, a manuscript that tries to combine different topics, then you of course try to find reviewers in the one and the other field, or also maybe because you mentioned the young scholars, if I approach younger reviewers, young scholars that also kind of need to learn this process, I always try to, in addition, find a more senior experienced scholar as a reviewer. And then it's really also good to see how they can learn from each other through the process, because they also, once there's a decision, they also see the other reviewer comments. And that's what I just talked with a very young scholar who did his first review. And he said, yeah, that's what he really appreciated, seeing the other review. And then we went through this more than I usually do with experienced reviewers, for example. So that's also maybe something, yeah, so young scholars, please do review for the journal as well, and see it as a learning process. And I'm sure you will also benefit from seeing the other reviews and so on. Then maybe young scholars, I read just the next one. And then, does the journal accept conceptual papers with propositions, Karen? I think that's...
Yes, well, we do have a great interest in and passion for empirical work, but having said that, we are very much open to conceptual papers as well. So yeah, in short, the answer here is yes. How does SGM's take on critical differ from the leading critical journals? Is it possible to crystallize SGM sensibility as distinct from, say, organization? That's a very interesting question, of course. I personally wouldn't think that our take on criticality and a critical sensibility differs so much from, for example, organization. I think we'd definitely be interested in similar themes, approaches, topics, but I do think that we are different in that we bridge various approaches. Owing to Barbara, who introduced that term in the team, so yeah, we do both. It's not that we only publish critical work. It's not either or, but it's and. I think that is something that is quite specific with this journal. You like to add something here, Barbara?
Yeah, no, because I think that's exactly what it is. I think the critical articles in the journal are critical articles, really also with the quality of critical articles. However, overall, the journal does not only publish critical articles, and that's maybe when we talked about this bridging as a journal. where I always had the feeling, and I think we as a team in general, where with the journal, with these different approaches and welcoming critical but also mainstream work, that with this we can contribute to the overall discussion by rather bridging aspects maybe, or by also publishing something a little bit different. But the articles that are critical articles, I would say they're really very good critical articles, but we do not publish only critical articles. That's probably
perhaps to add to this, because maybe that's something that stands out a little bit with this journal is something I've mentioned before, that the relevance for practice, and what we see with criticality in relation to practice and to management practice in particular, is that what we see surface in manuscripts is that for daily practitioners, critical issues, power dynamics, marginalizations, and all such critical aspects are very much part and parcel of their day-to-day lives. So we often see that it's not just about abstract critical work or abstract critical ideas, but that manuscript can very much relate this to the criticalities, the dynamics, the complexities going on in day-to-day managerial practice. I hope this answers your question. Let's see, what was the next one? Interpretive means qualitative, phenomenologically grounded research. Yes, yeah. In answer to this question, the answer is yes. And the next, what constitutes a good interpretive paper drawing from the larger canvas of sociology of work and organization studies? What constitutes a good contribution from Raman? Can I ask you to do a first attempt, Barbara?
Tough.
We have very interesting questions here.
Yeah, very good questions. Yeah, well, what constitutes a good interpretive paper? I try to think of examples where I would say, okay, that's a good example of where you could say
of
this.
Course, there's more than one answer possible here.
Yes, exactly. Well, if it's yeah, well, it sounds so easy on the one hand, but if it's thought triggering and if it provides something new, well, with regards to interpretive papers, I think also here the way how you work with methods, the methodology you apply, how reflexive the authors are with regards to the data, how they use it. Yeah, this overall then can lead to a good contribution. Yeah. Well, it's really difficult not to answer in a very broad way what you usually find on the web pages. But maybe you have a Raman. Maybe you have an example of what you, or how you would specify this question.
Yeah, the reason why I passed this on to you initially, Barbara, is because I thought that perhaps you are dealing with a recent manuscript that you can delve from in terms of answering this. But I think it's very good. It's very good to ask Raman, because I assume kind of already when reading your question that you may have a certain proposition for us.
Yes. So Am I audible? Good evening.
Yes, yes, we can hear
Yeah,
you.
so the thing is that, many greats in like Matt Salveson and Hugh Wilmot, and all these are giants, and they've all written for this journal, and that's why it's so close to many people who think and do CMS, right? So, you have people who use a Foucauldian perspective, for example, to understand a particular phenomenon, right? And then there is another, well, that's saying that this is causally that we are re-looking at theory, we're applying Foucault in a new context, right? And the second one is that you're saying that this doesn't happen here, but we are applying it in a new way in some other context. Now, the line between theoretical contribution by extending a theory, applying Foucault or maybe critical realism or any framework in the social sciences, and then using it in to understand data and to unpack it. Um, does it mean reinventing the wheel, or what are the probably a certain set of parameters that would say that yes, this is an interesting thing, not just just making criticizing, say that Foucault, there are criticisms of Foucault, right? But Foucault, going beyond Foucault's criticism, what does the journal actually want to say? That you made a theoretical contribution, and that puts the zoom light on your data, which is drawing from, rather than going through the entire gamut of, grounded theory, which seems to be much in vogue, but rather than delving deep into the experiences of maybe informal workers or people who work in the gig economy, and then saying that how do you make that theoretical contribution, at the same time say that my data is empirically novel.
Thank you so much, Raman. This clarifies the question, of course, and this makes a lot of sense. From my experience, if I can go first here, what happens most is that manuscripts indeed adopt specific approaches, specific lenses to look at a particular more traditional aspect in another manner. That is what we actually mostly see as a promise also, with the highlights of a particular manuscript, is that okay, this paper is just taking a totally novel critical approach towards understanding something that is usually understood in a more mainstream manner. You want to add to this, Barbara?
Yeah, I think this also then depends on what's the aim of the authors, yeah, and also where do they want to contribute to. And I'm just thinking of the different types of articles that we publish, and then it also depends on what kind of category you could see your work in this, for the discussion or perspectives papers or the commentaries also. I think there's much more room also for adding, for trying out something different. So that's one point where really, in addition to the paper, the topic, and your aim, I think it's also about what kind of category in the journal it can contribute to, and where would it fit more, where could it even make a better contribution related to the category. I think that really makes a difference here. And then maybe also to emphasize, in addition, in order to be able also to publish high quality critical work and to also develop manuscripts towards that they can constitute or make a very good contribution, we need critical scholars also as reviewers, who then also can see where and how to further develop this manuscript.
Does this answer your question?
And would you be willing to take manuscripts that are whose empirical base lies in another context, for example, India?
Yes, that was another question already in the chat. So we actually do get quite a number of manuscripts that are looking at very specific regions from all over the world, and we are certainly open and welcome to those. Yes. Okay, let's see then about. I'm looking at the CMS InTouch team. Do we have any other questions?
I think we had one from, I don't know if this was discussed in other aspects, but Leah mentioned, how does SGM's take on critical differ from other critical journals? And then she mentioned, is it possible to crystallize SGM sensibility as distinct from, say, organization? So I think you discussed that really well at the beginning when you mentioned that, you know, SGM is perhaps the audience is slightly different. It's a more generalist audience, so you'd expect papers to talk to that generalized audience as well. But is there anything else that you'd like to say surrounding that in terms of the? I think it's a lovely idea, the SGM sensibility. What would you say the SGM sensibility is, if you could sum that up?
Thanks so much, Kat, for coming back to this particular aspect. I do think the general audience is a good point. The awareness of the critical issues going on in actual practice is an important one. And other specific sensibilities. Let me think. Barbara, do you, from the top of your head, want to say something about this here? You're
not more than that. I would repeat myself.
Which is really good, good and nice. Yeah, thinking out loud about that one. Well, perhaps it is good to mention once again here the different types of manuscripts that we welcome. And in that respect, we also tend to welcome work that is perhaps a bit more provocative, especially with the commentaries and the discussion type of papers. There, the specific sensibility would be along the lines of just trying out somewhat bolder statements that definitely then do invoke a response from our readership, who then hopefully become authors because they too have an opinion. I think that is actually the kind of interplay that is emerging in the journal that I personally very much welcome and appreciate. So in that respect, we may yeah, of course, we value nuance, but a somewhat more bold and provocative tone is something that is also being appreciated in this journal.
Mm-hmm. And I think this then again leads us back to this this aspect of kind of dialogue, and also that we want yeah, maybe to support this kind of community feeling, because also as a reader, then we are happy if we get some feedback on yeah, certain aspects or papers that have been published before that you want to have discussed, and this is also this explicitly one of the triggers for adding a commentary paper, for example. Yeah? So not only we as editors or as being part of the editorial board should add to what could be a new discussion, but we're really more than happy if that also comes from the readers, yeah? Readers, reviewers, editors for special issues. So whenever there are ideas in this regard, or whenever something triggered thoughts that you really would want to discuss when you read papers, then I think we are really more than happy to to relate to this or to discuss this, and with this then also contribute to the dialogue. So I think this again would be something that's the SGM sensibility with regards to how we consider the nature of knowledge production. And then with regards to what kind of knowledge, it's quite broad, like general and broad, and both and even more. I guess that's a little bit how we see the journal.
There was also a question, I think, if I just quickly interject. Karen said, someone's asked about, you asked us to sign up as reviewers, and they've asked you also accept reviewers even if you've not contributed to the journal.
Thank you, Kat. I was just about to mention that one. So of course, we also welcome you to sign up as a reviewer if you have not yet contributed to the journal. Just please come and connect with us in either an author or a reviewer role, become part of the community, and then you can also obviously from becoming a reviewer eventually become an author with the journal. Okay, let me see what next question. Could I ask a question not related to content, but rather to format? How open is Scandinavian Journal of Management to creative, novel, alternative ways of delivering critical work, such as writing style? Thank you, Maria, for this question. I think this is already being answered by one of the examples we had in our presentation, the one on the bounded gatherer and an experimentation of a more than human writing style, somebody who is reflecting also on in this case his academic work and all the other influences, dynamics that are at play when you're actually writing. It is not just you and the mind that sit behind the laptop or a computer and produce academic work, and there is also there a sense of community readership, and so that is a very I'd say recommendable read and a very good example of an experimental writing style that we are definitely welcoming. I hope this answers the question. Let me see, where are we? Kat, can you help out once again?
Yeah, I think that's all the questions we have. I mean, Raman's just mentioned, it's nice to hear this community feeling in SGM lacking in the current zero-sum high-pressure context. And I think that's probably something that has really come over today in terms of SGM being that kind of that collegial and open forum where ambitious critical ideas can move forward in a safe and supportive environment, which has been wonderful.
Yes, well, thanks for the compliment also. But there's another one. Is there a specific email that prospective reviewers should use to get in touch? If you send it to me, I can put it in the chat for everyone. Use either Barbara's or my email address for the moment if you want to sign up as a reviewer. I know that Elsevier and our editorial management system are at the moment installing an actual link where you can sign up, but this is in process as we speak today. So just get into contact with either Barbara or myself. Our email addresses are in the presentation, but you're very welcome to share this here in the chat, and then we will direct you to the relevant link as soon as it's set up. Yes. Anything else?
I think we have come to the end of questions. So I think we can probably draw close now, and I think what remains is for me to say a massive thank you to you, Karen and Barbara. It's been really wonderful session, and I agree with Raman and with what Kat has said, that you have really managed to convey the wonderfully supportive spirit of the journal. and I would really echo that and say, you know, that's my sort of how I see Scandinavian Journal of Management as well, that it's a journal that will take, if you have a beautiful idea that is different, that is creative, that is, you know, departs from the norm in some ways, that you will take that idea and you will nurture it and support it, so to help it flourish into a beautiful paper. So, you know, thank you for doing that. Not just for the session, but thank you for doing that as editors as well. Our field and our community really needs that, and needs editors and journals like that. So thank you very much. Now moving on to our next, what's coming up. Our next event in the same series, in Publishing Critical Work series, is with Gender, Work and Organization. I think you'll agree it's another wonderful journal, and that's scheduled on Friday, the 18th of February. So we warmly invite you to sign up to that. As always, it's free and completely open, and we welcome everyone. Please do, if you enjoyed this session, please do sign up to us, follow us on Twitter, sign up to our alerts. We do put all the recordings on our free and open YouTube channel, so you can look at them at leisure, etc. And if you have ideas for your own CMS InTouch event, we don't just do the Publishing Critical Work series, we're open to ideas and suggestions from community. So if you want to organize your own CMS InTouch event on anything that you like, could be research or teaching or academic practice or anything that is of interest related to the critical management studies community, then do get in touch. We would be delighted to hear your ideas, and we'll help you to develop them into an event. So yes, once again, thank you very much to all of you for coming and for being part of the conversation today. Thank you very much to Karen and to Barbara. Thank you to the InTouch team behind the scenes, my colleagues Kat and Ritesh and Kirti, who's been tweeting today, and to others in the CMS InTouch team as well, helping behind the scenes. And I just wish you a good afternoon, evening, night, morning, the rest of your day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we hope to see you again soon.